Jake stood in line outside the Samsung store on a Thursday morning in October, about to drop $1,100 on a phone that was basically the same as the one in his pocket. He knew this. He'd watched every comparison video, read every spec sheet, followed every leak for 3 months straight. The new model had a slightly better zoom lens. The processor was maybe 4% quicker. The display was a hair brighter in direct sun. If you asked him what his current phone couldn't do, he'd struggle to answer. It handled calls, texts, photos that looked great on social media, every app he touched daily. The thing was 20 months old and ran perfectly. But standing there, surrounded by other people waiting for the doors to open, Jake felt like he was slipping backward, like his phone had suddenly turned into junk overnight, even though nothing had changed about it since yesterday when he used it to watch the announcement stream. That's when the trick happened. Not in the phone itself, but inside Jake's head. His perfectly good device had been mentally downgraded just because something newer existed. 24 hours ago, he was happy. Now, after watching executives on stage unveil features he'd probably never touch, Jake felt this weird itch of dissatisfaction creeping up. His solid, functional device had been psychologically marked as not enough by the simple existence of a replacement model. He didn't need a new phone. He needed to feel like his current one was inadequate, and Samsung had burned through billions making sure he'd feel exactly that way. Jake bought it, spent his weekend moving data, downloading apps, messing with settings until everything looked nearly identical to before. By Tuesday, the new phone felt ordinary, no different from what he'd left behind. The thrill lasted maybe 4 days. The monthly payments would stretch 2 years. And in about 18 months, he'd be back in another line, convinced again that what he owned wasn't cutting it anymore. I'm Alex, and I think way too much about why perfectly functional technology suddenly feels broken the second something newer drops. If you've ever upgraded a phone, laptop, or tablet and realized weeks later you basically paid $1,000 for the same experience you already had, this one's for you. If you've ever noticed your device mysteriously slowing down right around the time a new version launches, stick around. What I'm breaking down today is how the tech world has built a psychological and financial trap that drains the average household of tens of thousands over a lifetime. Not for real innovation, but for the appearance of innovation. I'm calling it the upgrade trap. Once you see the mechanics, you'll never watch a product launch the same way again. Here's the core thing you need to grasp about modern tech companies. Their business model isn't built on selling you an amazing device one time. It's built on selling you essentially the same device, repeatedly, with tiny changes dressed up as massive breakthroughs. Apple, Samsung, Google, and every other major player have nailed a form of psychological manipulation that flips your satisfaction into dissatisfaction on demand. They don't need to wreck your old device. They just need to make you feel like it's wrecked, which is way easier to pull off. And they execute this every single fall with a flashy presentation, a flood of ads, and a carefully staged cultural moment that makes millions of people simultaneously look at their current phone and think, maybe it's time to switch. The numbers behind this are wild. According to Counterpoint Research, Americans replace their phones roughly every 33 months. That's less than 3 years. Modern phones are engineered to last 5 to 7 years easily with basic care. But people swap out way before that. The average phone price in the U.S. now sits above $850 per Consumer Intelligence Research Partners. Flagship models regularly cross 1,000. Do the math. If you're upgrading every 33 months at $850 per phone across a 40-year span, you're spending about $12,000 just on phones. That's before cases, chargers, accessories, insurance plans, and those monthly payment schemes designed to hide the sticker shock. But phones are just the entry point. Toss in laptops getting replaced every 3 to 4 years at $1,200 each. Tablets at $600 every 4 years. Smartwatches at $400 every 3 years. Wireless earbuds at $200 every couple years. Smart home gadgets, streaming sticks, and the endless parade of stuff that marketers swear you need until the next version makes them feel outdated. A 2023 Consumer Technology Association report found the average American household drops roughly $1,700 annually on consumer electronics. Over 40 years, that's $68,000, the price of a luxury car, a SME down payment on a house in most places, or about $340,000 if you'd invested that money in an index fund pulling 8% returns over the same stretch. You're not buying technology, you're buying scheduled dissatisfaction, manufactured by corporations that profit from keeping you feeling perpetually behind. Let me walk you through exactly how this trap operates. The machinery is both slick and brutal. The first mechanism is planned obsolescence through software, the deliberate slowing of older devices via operating system updates built for newer hardware. Back in 2017, Apple got caught throttling the performance of older iPhones to compensate for worn batteries. They paid out $500 million in a settlement, confirming what users had suspected forever. Their phones weren't imagining that slowdown that magically appeared around new releases. But software obsolescence runs deeper than throttling. Each new OS version demands more processing muscle, more RAM, more storage, resources your older device has in fixed amounts. Your 3-year-old phone can technically run the latest iOS or Android update, but it runs it slower. More lag, apps crashing more often, battery draining faster because the software requirements exceed what the hardware can comfortably handle. You didn't break your phone. The manufacturer updated it into degradation, and the only fix they offer is buying the new hardware designed specifically for the new software. It's a loop they control completely. The second mechanism is planned obsolescence through hardware. Deliberate design choices that make devices painful or impossible to repair. According to the U.S. Public Interest Research Group, the right to repair movement exists specifically because manufacturers have made batteries non-removable, screens fused in proprietary ways, and parts unavailable to independent shops. An iPhone battery swap through Apple runs $89 to $119 and needs an appointment at a certified spot. The actual battery costs about $15. The rest is labor and artificially restricted access. Plenty of people facing an $89 repair bill on a 3-year-old phone figure they might as well throw that money towards something new. Exactly the calculation the manufacturer wanted them to make. And the third mechanism, and this one's the sneakiest, the annual release cycle itself. By dropping new devices on a predictable schedule, tech companies have trained consumers to experience their current device as increasingly outdated with each passing month. The phone you grabbed in February feels cutting edge. By September, when the new model gets announced, that same phone, unchanged, still working perfectly, feels like yesterday's news. The keynote doesn't just market the new device, it systematically markets dissatisfaction with the old one. Every feature they spotlight subtly suggests your current device is missing something critical. Every camera comparison implies your photos are slightly worse. Every performance test hints that your device is falling behind. You're not watching a product reveal. You're watching a carefully scripted psychological operation designed to create desire for something you don't need by creating discontent with something that still works fine. Now you might be thinking technology does actually improve. New phones genuinely are better. Upgrading makes sense because you're getting real value. And this is where I need to challenge what better actually means in real-world use. A flagship phone from 2022 and a flagship from 2025 can both handle everything 95% of users actually do with their phones: texting, calling, social media, photography good enough for Instagram, email, maps, streaming video, basic productivity. The 2025 phone does these things maybe 3 to 5% faster. Photos slightly better in low-light situations most people rarely hit. A screen marginally brighter in direct sun that makes zero difference indoors. Battery life about the same because efficiency gains get eaten by bigger screens and more power-hungry features. The improvements are real but invisible in daily use. You can't feel a 5% speed bump. You can't spot the difference between a 20-megapixel photo and a 24-megapixel photo on a phone screen. You can't meaningfully experience the tiny upgrades that marketing teams package as transformational leaps. A Wayne State University study found users couldn't reliably tell flagship phones apart across generations in blind tests when doing everyday tasks. They could spot differences in synthetic benchmarks, tests built specifically to highlight performance gaps. But in actual usage scenarios, the phones felt functionally identical, which means you're not dropping $1,000 for a better experience. You're paying $1,000 for the knowledge that you own the newest version. That's psychological satisfaction completely unrelated to practical utility. And here's what most people miss about the comparison between old and new devices. The alternative to buying a new flagship isn't suffering with obsolete junk. It's buying nothing because your current device still works. Or buying a refurbished flagship from 2 generations back at half price with 95% of the performance. A refurbished iPhone 13 Pro in 2025 costs around $450 and does virtually everything an iPhone 16 Pro does for daily tasks. That 2-year-old flagship isn't obsolete. It's arbitrage. It performs at flagship level for mid-range money because the upgrade trap convinced its original owner to trade it in for something marginally better. Flooding the refurbished market with excellent devices, the marketing machine tells you to ignore. Let me show you the lifetime math of escaping this trap, because this is where the money impact becomes genuinely life-altering. Take 2 people with identical tech needs. Person A upgrades their phone every 2 years at $1,000 each, buys a new laptop every 3 years at $1,400, replaces their tablet every 4 years at $700, updates accessories like earbuds and watches at whatever pace manufacturers suggest. Person B keeps their phone for 4 years, buys refurbished flagships from 2 generations prior, keeps laptops for 6 years with 1 battery swap, only replaces accessories when they actually die. Person A drops roughly $2,800 per year on personal tech. Person B spends about $900 annually. That's a $1,900 difference every single year. Over 30 working years, Person A burns $84,000 on personal technology. Person B spends $27,000. The gap is $57,000 in direct spending. But the real cost is opportunity cost, what that $57,000 could have become if invested instead of spent on tiny upgrades. At 8% compound returns, that $1,900 annual difference invested each year for 30 years grows to roughly $214,000. $250,000. That's the actual cost of the upgrade trap. Not the price of any single device, but the compounded lifetime wealth extraction through manufactured dissatisfaction. Upgrade after upgrade, year after year, while perfectly functional technology sits in drawers or gets traded in for a fraction of its remaining useful life. Here's where it gets really interesting. The tech industry has also convinced us that holding on to devices is somehow embarrassing or irresponsible, when the opposite is true. The environmental cost of the upgrade trap is catastrophic. According to the United Nations, roughly 50 million metric tons of e-waste get generated globally each year, and that number keeps climbing. The rare earth minerals in your phone, lithium, cobalt, neodymium, get extracted through environmentally destructive mining, often in countries with poor labor protections. Manufacturing a single phone produces about 70 kilograms of CO2 emissions, and the majority of a device's lifetime carbon footprint comes from manufacturing, not use. Every unnecessary upgrade isn't just a financial choice, it's an environmental one. The person rocking a 4-year-old phone isn't behind the times. They're making a smarter economic decision and a more responsible environmental one. The social pressure to upgrade is manufactured, and it should be resisted not just for money reasons, but because the consumption pattern it drives is genuinely unsustainable. The marketing has convinced us that wanting the new thing is natural and inevitable. But the wanting is engineered. You didn't wake up feeling dissatisfied with your phone. You watched a keynote or saw an ad or scrolled past a review that planted the dissatisfaction. The desire came from outside, not inside. Recognizing that is the first step to escaping the cycle. So what do you actually do to escape the upgrade trap? The first action to take in escaping this update trap is to define your actual use case and measure your current device against it, not against the theoretical maximum a new device could provide. Ask yourself what you actually do with your phone or laptop daily. Texting, email, social media, photos, streaming? If yes, your 2 or 3-year-old device handles all those tasks adequately. You don't need more processing power for Instagram. You don't need a better camera for casual snapshots. The new features are designed to create demand, not serve existing needs. Second action is to extend the life of your current devices through simple maintenance. Replace batteries when they wear down. A $100 repair that adds 2 years of life is dramatically cheaper than a $1,000 replacement. Use protective cases to prevent damage. Delete unused apps and files to maintain performance. Factory reset. Devices that have become sluggish. Often, the performance problems are software buildup, not hardware limits. A 2022 Asurion survey found the average smartphone has 80 unused apps eating storage and processing resources. Cleaning up your device can bring back performance you thought was gone. Third action. Buy refurbished when you do need to upgrade. Apple, Samsung, and third-party sellers like Gazelle and Backmarket sell certified refurbished devices at 30 to 50% discounts with warranties covering defects. A 2-year-old refurbished flagship is virtually identical to a new mid-range device in daily use, at lower cost with the same reliability. The stigma around refurbished is manufactured by companies who profit from selling new. The devices themselves are excellent, and the fourth action is to set upgrade intervals based on actual need, not marketing cycles. A solid phone should last 4 to 5 years. A good laptop should go 6 to 7 years. Equality. Tablet should run 5 to 6 years. When the device literally can't run the software you need or the battery won't hold a charge even after replacement, that's when you upgrade, not when a company tells you something newer exists. Right now, you probably see yourself as someone who appreciates technology, someone who enjoys having capable devices, someone who stays reasonably current without being excessive. That identity feels balanced and rational. But there's another way to see it. Every upgrade cycle you participate in is a vote for a system designed to extract maximum revenue from manufactured dissatisfaction. Every time you trade in a working device because something newer exists, you're confirming the psychological manipulation worked. The tech industry doesn't see you as a customer to serve. It sees you as a resource to harvest on a predictable schedule. And it has engineered an entire cultural apparatus, product announcements, influencer reviews, social media hype, trade-in programs to ensure you show up every 2 to 3 years with $1,000 ready to exchange for an experience almost identical to what you already had. Jake isn't a careless spender. He's the perfect customer. He waited in line to pay $1,100 for a 3% improvement he can't perceive. And in 18 months, he'll do it again, never calculating the lifetime cost because the payments spread across months and the dissatisfaction gets manufactured fresh each October. The upgrade trap works because it attacks your perception, not your device. Your phone didn't become worse when the new model got announced. Your perception of your phone changed because billions of dollars were spent changing it. The only escape is recognizing the manipulation for what it is and measuring your device against your actual needs rather than an artificial standard designed to make you feel perpetually behind. You're not behind. You're being told you're behind by people who profit. When you believe them. Let me paint this another way, because the money angle here connects to something way bigger than just phones. That $57,000 difference over 30 years? That's not just about tech. That's about financial independence. That's about the gap between someone who retires at 65 and someone who retires at 55. That's about having options versus feeling trapped. Every dollar you don't spend on unnecessary upgrades is a dollar that can work for you instead of against you. Compound interest is the most powerful wealth-building force available to regular people, and the upgrade trap systematically undermines it by convincing you to spend money on depreciating assets that provide almost zero incremental value. Think about it this way. When you buy a new phone for $1,000, you're not just losing $1,000. You're losing whatever that $1,000 could have grown into over the next 20, 30, 40 years. At 8% returns, $1,000 invested today becomes about $10,000 in 30 years. So that phone doesn't cost you $1,000, it costs you $10,000 in future wealth. And you're doing this every 2 to 3 years, multiple times, across multiple device categories. The compounding loss is staggering. This isn't about being cheap. This isn't about denying yourself things that genuinely improve your life. This is about recognizing when you're being manipulated into spending money on things that don't actually move the needle on your day-to-day experience, so you can redirect that money toward things that genuinely do matter, whether that's financial security, earlier retirement, more travel, less stress, more options. Here's what separates people who stay broke from people who build wealth. It's not income. Plenty of high earners stay broke because they spend everything. It's the ability to distinguish between real value and perceived value. Broke people. Or more. Accurately, people trapped in broke thinking make purchasing decisions based on what's new, what's popular, what everyone else has. They're reactive. They feel the social pressure and cave to it because they haven't developed the mental framework to resist. Wealthy people, or people with wealth-building mindset, make purchasing decisions based on utility and opportunity cost. They ask, does this actually improve my life in a measurable way? And what am I giving up by spending this money instead of investing it? The upgrade trap preys on the first group and gets filtered out by the second, and the gap between those two approaches compounds dramatically over time. There's also a comparison trap baked into this. Social media amplifies the upgrade cycle because everyone's posting their unboxing videos, their first impressions, their excitement about the new thing. You see that, and you feel left out. You feel like you're missing something. Like your device, which was perfectly fine yesterday, is suddenly inadequate because 5 people you follow got the new version. This is manufactured FOMO. Fear of missing out on something that doesn't actually matter. You're not missing out on functionality. You're missing out on the temporary psychological hit of owning something new, which fades in days but costs you for years. Breaking free from the upgrade trap requires breaking free from the comparison trap. Your financial decisions should be based on your needs and goals, not on what's trending in your feed. There's an interesting overlap here with minimalism and intentional living. The core principle of minimalism isn't about owning less stuff for the sake of owning less. It's about only owning things that serve a clear purpose in your life, things that add genuine value. A 3-year-old phone that handles all your daily tasks serves a clear purpose. A new phone that does the same things 3% faster doesn't add genuine value. It adds clutter, both physical, clutter and mental clutter in the form of debt, monthly payments, and the ongoing anxiety of trying to keep up with the latest thing. Applying minimalist thinking to tech purchases is powerful. Before buying, ask, what purpose does this serve that my current device doesn't already handle? If the answer is weak or based on vague feelings rather than concrete use cases, don't buy it. There's also a time cost that nobody talks about. Every upgrade requires setup time. Transferring data. Reinstalling apps. Reconfiguring settings. Relearning slightly different interfaces. Troubleshooting things that break in the transition. That's hours of your life, every couple years, spent recreating an experience you already had. Time you could spend doing literally anything else. Working on a side project, spending time with family, learning a skill. Just relaxing. The tech companies present upgrades as seamless, but anyone who's actually done it knows there's always friction. Stuff that doesn't transfer correctly, apps that need new logins, settings that reset. It's a hassle, even when it goes smoothly. When you factor in the time cost on top of the financial cost, the value proposition of frequent upgrades gets even weaker. Let me zoom in on one specific tactic that perfectly illustrates how the whole system works: battery replacement pricing. As I mentioned earlier, getting your iPhone battery replaced through Apple costs $89 to $119. The battery itself costs about $15. Why the massive markup? Because Apple has calculated that at $89, enough people will decide I might as well put that toward a new phone instead of repairing. It's priced specifically to push you toward the more profitable option, buying a new device. If battery replacement cost $30, way more people would repair instead of replace. But at $89, it feels just expensive enough to justify upgrading, especially if you're already feeling that manufactured dissatisfaction from the marketing cycle. This is the brilliance, or the evil, depending on how you look at it, of the whole system. Every piece is carefully calibrated to nudge you toward the highest profit behavior for the company, disguised as convenience or value. Trade-in programs are another layer of this. Apple, Samsung, and carriers all offer to give you money for your old device when you buy a new one. Sounds great, right? You're getting value for something you were going to discard anyway. But look closer. The trade-in value is always significantly below what the device is actually worth on the resale market. Apple might offer you $300 for a phone you could sell privately for $500. That $200 gap is pure profit for them. And trade-ins serve another purpose, removing functional devices from circulation. If Apple can get your old iPhone through a trade-in, they can refurbish it and sell it themselves at a markup, or they can ensure it's not competing with new sales in the secondary market. The existence of robust trade-in programs isn't about helping you. It's about controlling the entire device lifecycle to maximize profit at every stage. We should also talk about the accessory trap because it compounds the main trap. Every time you upgrade your phone, you often need new accessories. New case, maybe new chargers if they change the port, new screen protector, maybe new wireless earbuds if the old ones aren't fully compatible. These costs add up. You're not just paying for the phone, you're paying for the entire ecosystem refresh. And manufacturers know this. It's why they keep changing ports, removing headphone jacks, shifting to proprietary standards. Each change forces accessory purchases that wouldn't otherwise happen. Monthly payment plans deserve special attention because they're psychologically crucial to making this whole system work. If you had to pay $1,000 cash up front, every time you upgraded, way fewer people would do it. That pain would be too immediate and obvious. But when it's $42 a month for 24 months, it doesn't feel like $1,000. It feels like $42. Your brain processes it differently. And carriers and manufacturers know this. They've deliberately structured pricing to minimize the psychological pain of purchase. You're not buying a phone. You're just adding a small monthly cost that gets buried in your overall bill. This is the same trap that keeps people broke across every category of spending. Car loans, furniture financing, buy now, pay later schemes. When you break large purchases into small monthly chunks, your brain stops registering the true cost. Your 3-year-old phone works. Your 5-year-old laptop works. The dissatisfaction you feel isn't coming from the device. It's coming from a marketing machine that needs you dissatisfied to survive. Here's the test. Right now, before you've been exposed to any marketing for the next generation, how do you feel about your current phone? Probably fine, right? It does what you need. You're not sitting there frustrated by it. Now imagine watching the next keynote. Suddenly, that same phone feels slower, older, less capable. What changed? Nothing about the phone. Everything about your perception. That shift is artificial. It's planted. And recognizing it gives you the power to resist it. The path to building wealth isn't complicated. Spend less than you earn. Invest the difference. Let compound interest work over decades. That's it. But actually, executing that path requires resisting hundreds of traps designed to separate you from your money. The upgrade trap is just one of them, but it's a big one. And it's particularly insidious because it's wrapped in the language of progress and improvement. You're not being anti-technology by resisting frequent upgrades. You're being pro your own financial future. You're recognizing that the incremental improvements don't justify the cost and that your money can do more for you elsewhere. Unplug from the illusion. Keep what works. Invest the difference. If this changed how you see your next upgrade decision, hit that like button and subscribe. We're breaking down more traps like this one, places where companies have figured out how to systematically extract wealth from people who don't realize they're being played. The game is rigged, but once you see the rules, you can stop playing. Or at least stop playing on their terms. I'll see you in the next one.